Throughout world mythology, the motif of a catastrophic flood recurs with striking consistency. In the Sumerian version, the oldest known account, this story centers not on Noah but on a figure named Ziusudra. According to the Eridu-Genesis and later Akkadian records, Ziusudra was not merely a righteous man chosen to survive. He was selected by a faction of gods to preserve something far more valuable than himself: the blueprint of life. This episode explores the theory that Ziusudra's ark was not a wooden vessel, but a technologically advanced container, a biovault designed by the Anunnaki to withstand global destruction and secure genetic continuity. Sumerian records describe a critical moment in pre-Diluvian history. The Anunnaki High Council, led by Enlil, determined that mankind had become unmanageable, noisy, overpopulated, and according to the texts, disruptive to the gods. Enlil's proposed solution was extreme: a planetary flood to reset civilization. While most divine factions supported this erasure, one figure, Enki, the genetic scientist and protector of humanity, opposed the decision. Rather than defy the council directly, Enki chose an alternative. He would quietly preserve the genetic code of Earth through one chosen individual. That individual was Ziusudra. The common depiction of Ziusudra's vessel as a primitive wooden ark may be an oversimplification. In Sumerian and Akkadian sources, the craft is described as cubical, perfectly sealed, and impervious to water from above and below. According to interpretations by researchers like Zechariah Sitchin, the vessel may have functioned more like a submersible capsule or even a containment pod, suggesting a far higher level of engineering than previously assumed. The texts specify that Ziusudra was instructed to bring aboard the seed of all living beings. Some scholars argue this may refer not to literal animals, but to genetic material, a biospheric backup encoded into crystalline storage known as the Emi tablets. According to both the Eridu-Genesis and Akkadian Tablet 11, the flood was no ordinary storm. It is described as a planet-wide cataclysm, a deluge that swept over the land like a wild bull, lasting 7 days and 7 nights. Geological evidence supports the occurrence of massive flooding events around 11,000 BCE, often tied to the end of the Younger Dryas. Whether by divine judgment or environmental collapse, the vessel, sealed and guided by Enki's resonance, remained afloat while the world below was erased. This suggests it was not merely a boat, but a preservation capsule stabilized by advanced Anunnaki technology. When the flood receded, Ziusudra's vessel came to rest, not on a specific mountain, but in a location known in Sumerian mythology as Dilmun. Ancient texts describe Dilmun as a land of purity, where the gods dwell, and where the sun rises. Esoteric scholars interpret this not as a geographical location, but as a dimensional state, possibly a higher frequency realm used by the Anunnaki as a genetic repository or sacred colony. There, Ziusudra was greeted not with punishment, but with immortality. He had fulfilled his role, the human custodian of the Anunnaki's biosphere. The texts record that Enlil, upon discovering Ziusudra's survival, was enraged. But Enki intervened, arguing that without Ziusudra, the genetic legacy of Earth would be lost. A compromise was reached. Ziusudra would not return to human civilization. Instead, he was taken to dwell among the gods, granted a lifespan no mortal could rival. Later traditions would alter his name. In Akkadian, he became Utnapishtim, in the Hebrew tradition, Noah. But the advanced nature of the vessel, the preservation of DNA, and the involvement of extraterrestrial beings, all were rewritten or removed. The true role of Ziusudra, as a living archive of the Anunnaki's experiment, was buried. Across multiple ancient cultures, From the Sumerians and Akkadians to the Hebrews and Greeks, we find strikingly similar flood narratives. But beyond myth, these stories may encode a deeper truth: the intervention of advanced beings to reboot life on Earth. The preservation of life through a single vessel, a seed vault, a chosen survivor, and a divine instruction manual is not just symbolic. It suggests a real operation of planetary safeguarding, using Earth as a biological test bed. Today, this concept is mirrored by our own civilization. Consider the Svalbard Global Seed Vault in Norway, designed to store plant genetic material in case of planetary disaster. We are repeating the same pattern, but the Anunnaki may have done it first. If Ziusudra preserved the genetic essence of life, then that preservation may not be a closed chapter. Sumerian sources claim that the ME tablets, which Ziusudra stored inside the vessel, contain not only biological information, but energetic patterns tied to consciousness, memory, and divine order. Some esoteric researchers believe that remnants of this archive are still active, encoded not just in physical DNA, but in epigenetic frequency fields passed down through generations. In this view, the survival of humanity wasn't merely physical, it was spiritual and vibrational. Ziusudra's legacy may live inside us, influencing dormant capacities for memory, language, and even intuitive knowledge. If so, our DNA may be more than an evolutionary map. It may be a living library, and Ziusudra, its first human librarian. Today, Ziusudra is largely forgotten outside of academic circles. His name rarely appears in religious discussion, and when it does, it is veiled beneath newer identities: Utnapishtim, Noah, Deucalion. But the oldest texts, the Sumerian ones, do not describe him as merely faithful or obedient. They describe him as the preserver of code. He is the one who ensured the continuity of life after a planetary wipeout. The one chosen not to repopulate, but to reseed. Ziusudra's ark may not have been wooden. It may have been engineered. His mission may not have been myth. It may have been scientific. And his memory may not have been erased, just hidden. As we examine the oldest surviving records of human civilization, we find patterns, deliberate patterns. The flood myth is not merely allegory. It is a preservation narrative, a record of genetic and civilizational rebooting that predates the Bible, predates Egypt, and predates what we call history. Ziusudra, described as a king and a priest, stands at the center of this process. He is not simply the righteous man of legend. He is the appointed curator of the Anunnaki project on Earth. His ark, not a ship, but a mobile archive, capable of preserving DNA, energetic patterns, and encoded consciousness. His survival, not accidental, but designed by Enki to ensure that the experiment of Earth could continue. And his erasure, perhaps intentional, to prevent us from remembering the truth, that what we are may have always been part of someone else's system. The code survived. It lives in us, but Ziusudra was the key that carried it forward. You've just heard the story they tried to erase, the original flood narrative, the real ark, and the forgotten figure who carried the Anunnaki's legacy into a new world. Subscribe to Hidden Origins TV for more decoded histories, forbidden texts, and suppressed knowledge. And remember, what we call myth may in fact be memory.